Oh, well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. Who else? Well, I'll tell you who else. It's the wonderful Thea Montgomerie Anderson. It's back to the Futurist and the things that we always do, putting the AI into Britain. Thea, how are you?
I'm really good, actually. You know how much I love AI and I love Britain, and it's rainy today. And being a Scot, that's my favorite kind of weather.
The rainy Scot, I love it. Well, for those who don't know, and I keep banging on about this, Thea's the co-founder and editor-at-large of AI Spy magazine. Brilliant. If you haven't got a copy yet, make sure you get it all of the time. She's a unique individual, hailing from a traditional city legal, political, and media background. She then retrained as part of a healing journey as a creative, completing 7 years in further education, mastering the dark art of social media, personal branding, and music, whilst being baptized with the waters of the transformational technology that is AI. It sounds though AI wrote this. It's got to be good. As a writer and speaker on AI, Thea is passionate about AI's potential to empower and uplift the neurodivergent community. And I tell you what, Thea and I, we had such fun producing a number of these episodes of Back to the Futurist. Well, we're doing a regular spot where we're getting some great AI advocates and people who are using AI all the time from around the world. And today we're kick this off with Nicholas Luna Martins Ferreira. What a great name, bit of a mouthful. Producer and creative director. Nick is a multimedia artist who's been making music from a young age. He came to London originally to study music at BiMM. He worked part-time at a media company based in the USA and then began to work in Pierce Entertainment Studios, working with high-ticket clients. I bet they appreciate that, before building his own freelance client base. Nick, welcome to Thea and my wonderful show. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's nice to be
Uh,
here.
let's start off with this. It's very much a sort of conversation on this, and Thea and I will sort of chip in as appropriate. But let's start off with a sort of general thing, because as a multimedia artist who started in music, how do you see AI reshaping the creative process rather for artists like yourself across different media?
Oh, completely changing everything. I mean, we can go all the way to the end where I believe that it's a process of taking away barriers, essentially getting to a point where we just need to think about the art we want to create, whether it's a visual medium or a musical medium, and it comes just free through the pipeline. And then we can talk about various tools to create creative access, to create creative inspiration. It's going to continuously change in a very, very dynamic way. And everyone's always skeptical, but even now in every industry, whether it's video or audio, it becomes more and more uh, ingrained into workflows. Currently, I'd say it's in ways that don't feel like it's AI. For instance, creating or cleaning up audio by using very, very meticulous little dots that you just put there, but in reality, it's analyzing the audio and making corrections
And,
for
and we
you.
had a great example of that with that track from the Beatles. Talk to me
Mm,
about how that process, because people misunderstood it. There's a balance between creating content and basically
mm.
what AI was used there was basically to clean up the track. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so um, basically, AI can, through analyzing balance and the mixing and mastering aspect of a song, which is essentially how loud the vocal is versus how loud the guitar is, or how loud the whole track overall is. We can use tools to, usually there is, or traditionally there is a role called the engineer who goes in and mixes the song. And now the engineer has access to AI tools, where as opposed to trying to listen and meticulously find all these details, they can have a tool such as this one called Soothe that will listen to harshness and automatically detect it and take it out on a granular level that is so much finer than what the human hand could even do, creating all of these points that would take you an hour to 2 hours to put down, and it would be inefficient for an engineer to do.
Yeah. And then what was interesting with the Beatles one was the track called Now and Then. It was lost in time, wasn't it? They managed to
Mm.
find an old recording, but it was a bit. It was only ever supposed to be a demo, and whether Yoko wanted it out there or not, it was eventually sort of tied it up. But it was a great use of AI. I mean, Thea, let's bring you in on this. I mean, what are your thoughts on what Nick said?
Okay, so I've actually just done 7 years at music school. So that's how I got into AI. And I did my music masters and I used an AI mixing and mastering tool to master some of my tracks because I do alternative free time jazz, so like 7 minute long tracks. And my stuff isn't really for commercial. It's like, do you like my weird vibe? You like my weird vibe? Amazing. So for me to go and spend, say, £3,000 and getting a track mixed and mastered wouldn't make financial sense because it's very unlikely I'm going to make my money back because I'm not making very commercial music. I make it more for my cool crowd. And I have to say that Logic had an AI mastering tool, which just made it all so much easier. I also have an auditory condition. So the way I hear is different to another human being. So for me, even mixing and mastering my own music, no matter how hard I try, it's probably going to sound not quite commercial standards. Nick is at the top of his game. You know, he's working with massive big artists. I could name drop people like he is so good that even Janet Jackson's kids have used him to do audio mixing live.
Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant. That's
I-
what we want.
yeah, so I mean, for people who are different, I think AI bridges that gap because it's the assistant that you can have that can help you be more mainstream or be even more superhuman. So, you know, my ability, for instance, to free time jazz and make up lyrics on stage is partly because of the way my brain works. But my ears are work differently to another person. So AI was the bridge between what I wanted to do and what I now can do because somebody had bothered to make that program.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's the important thing, isn't it? It's looking what we always try and do on this show is to sort of understand what the technology can do, but also the threats and the opportunities. Now, Nick, you've worked with many high ticket clients at Pierce Entertainment. You've built your own freelance base. We heard about Janet Jackson and her offspring, so all good stuff. Do you think AI tools could democratize the access to professional grade production, or do they risk oversaturating the market with generic content?
Well, yes. This is the thing is that it creates a completely different landscape.
Mm,
And now what we're doing is we are going to a place where it's not about technical skill. It's about creative intuition. That's it. People who have a higher level of creative intuition, who have a higher level of imagination, are going to win because they're able to generate the more diverse ideas, the more impactful and emotional ideas that resonate with people. We're going to go beyond this. Oh, he's so amazing. They are so talented. She's so incredible at singing. It's going to be wow. That was like nothing I've ever seen.
mm.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, that's the other thing, Thea, as well, isn't it? Because when you're using AI, there's a big issue. As you know, I'm a copyright, intellectual property lawyer. It's all about rights and basically scraping the internet to get all this stuff. And it's a lot about ownership. Now, as you know, Elon Musk's father, Errol, is on my show all of the time, which is a delight. His daughter-in-law, ex-daughter-in-law, is the artist Grimes, and she was saying that one of the ways of solving this is they jointly own the copyright with somebody who's used an AI tool and used her work. What's your view?
I think that even before AI, there was issues with the whole copyright thing. There was, I think it was Ed Sheeran got sued a number of times, for having there are only so many chords in the Western music making. So when in the West we use half notes rather than quarters, is it rather than quarter notes in the Middle East? So there are only so many ways you can actually put together chords to make rhythms and stuff like that. So at some point it's going to sound like you stole stuff from somebody else, whether you did or not. So even before AI, there was litigation around this in the music industry. And I do think that from a business point of view, she's very clever to offer co-ownership. I remember when she did this, she's like, hey, use my stuff, guys. Just make sure that I get named and, you know, I own a bit of it. Because now she's got a whole bunch of worker bees running off and helping her make money. And from a personal branding point of view, because you know this is an area that I'm big into, she's managed to elevate her personal brand and make herself seem very, very reasonable and a musician of the people. And whilst AI can go off and make great music, and there are some great AI bands out there, ultimately what we buy as human beings is the personal brand of the other person. You know, what is it you stand for? Why do you stand for that? How come I bought into your story? And an
And
AI, even an AI robot, cannot do that because it is
Well,
fundamentally.
you say that, but yet you have some artists who are signed up, and they've got some
Yeah,
AI artists, some very famous ones, being signed up by record companies. And it's easy in a way where you have one artist and they say, look, use my work and create a new work. Well, that's great. That's one artist. What the internet does, and what AI will do, it will scrape the internet for all sorts of music and
yeah,
suddenly turn around and say, okay, here's a new piece. Now, dividing up those micro pennies, because it's even less than publishing normally, is horrendous. You've also got things, and it does show that people don't really know when it's real or when it's not. You have Drake and the Weekend and
Yeah.
that famous track that was released, and people couldn't tell. What's your take on that, Nick?
I think it's a a a technological and public shift. I think it's absurd. It's going to happen naturally. There are going to be a lot of growing pains. I think that there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of work to try and find the right balance. I know the UK is working for an opt-in and opt-out legislation to try and figure out the most ethical way for artists to have their data used for this kind of thing. What do I think about it? It's tricky. It's really tricky because I believe in innovation. I believe in where it goes, but at the moment it is very, very tough, especially how the public receives it and how a lot of people just are not aware of what they're consuming. And especially with media, it's hard to want to be genuine and open about it because of what the impact you can make. And I think that is kind of the scariest part.
Yeah, it is scary. I was saying that the artist was called Nunuri, and she did something called Dominoes. She was signed to the record label on that sort of basis to Warner Music. They also have a rapper, FN Mecca. I've got all his albums, and you work on that sort of basis. So it is undoubtedly the way forward, and it's trying to work out that structure. As you say, from a government
Yeah.
point of view, you're trying to turn out. We have to look after artists. If you don't look after artists, we're going to lose a lot of that sort of stuff. And it's the reason they had the strike in Hollywood. It was about the artist, about the actual people who appear on screen, because they could basically say the background artists, you can record them in the morning and you never need to use them again because AI will create all these movies and so on and so forth. But it was also about the writers and so on and so forth. So what we try to do is to say balance the risks and the opportunities. In terms of that sort of side, what do you think, Thea, are the most exciting possibilities AI can offer, and how do we balance that reality about making sure we don't lose the human input?
Okay, so if you look at Darcy, they are a drum plugin. They have a thing called natural drums, and what they've done is already they actually got a whole bunch of composers, some of them very well known, and took their like in their music with their permission. And so it means as a creator, when I create anything having used Darcy natural drums, they will automatically get a portion share if the record actually makes money, which on Spotify is highly unlikely. Not even for massively famous people does that actually make money unless of course you've trained bots to listen to it. But that's a story for another day. I think the possibilities. Look, when you look at this from a consciousness point of view, I studied cymatics as part of my master's. In actual fact, the human body in EEGs reacts differently to music that's fully made and to art that has been created by something that's electronic rather than a human being. There is the phenomenon in the quantum field that your consciousness actually pours into the music. If you look at something like the harmonic egg, that's an egg that you sit in that heals you. Music which has been created by people who have actually put their intention into healing you from cancer has a much better hit rate when scientific on the research side than music that doesn't. For instance, there is intent behind it. They've done experiments in restaurants when food's been cooked in a kitchen that's where everyone's screaming and arguing. There's more complaints and the food doesn't taste as good. But when you put in a whole bunch of hum people, they start to get a lot of tips. So there's a lot of stuff out there we can't see as human beings. But I do think there's great potential for AI in music. There's a man called John Mortar who makes AI bands with AI music, and he just uses Suno. And like he said, it will take quite a few hours to make a clip that's actually sounding authentic and reasonable. And he does it to make protest music because the stuff that he's saying in that music, a normal band, if they were to say it, would get cancelled and would probably might even get locked up by some governments. However, what are you going to do? lock up an AI algorithm and tell it it's very, very naughty and put it in prison. And his protest music is about the UK and the way things are running. But so there is an opportunity to put information out there creatively that as a human being you might end up in prison for.
Yeah, and it is interesting because music, I mean, it's some glorious clips. There's always the wonderful stories about how music and the power of music. And I've worked for many years with Nordorf Robbins and Silverclef, basically with music therapy. But you can see, if anybody hasn't seen it, go and see the Marta Gonzalez clip. And she was the person who was the ex-Swan Lake ballerina who was locked in this world with, she had Alzheimer's and so on and so forth, couldn't communicate with anybody. But they put the headphones on and they played this moment from Swan Lake, and she was doing all the arm gestures, even more elegantly than I'm doing it. She was doing all the arm gestures and everything, and it just brings tears to the eyes, doesn't it, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen that specific clip. I definitely need to check it out. And I want to add on as well to what Thea was saying. I think there are so many opportunities for artists to grab onto. It makes me think of I created this system, this automation for using AI agents to essentially create a feedback loop of story of narrative that I'm eventually going to feed into an image generator so that an AI can or a system can dream for as long as it's going because it'll go infinitely. And if I change out the system for audio, what will be created is a river of music that flows. And when I dip into it, I can listen to it. It's like a radio. It's going to be playing something, but an hour later, it's going to be playing something completely different. Um, and there's the interesting thing about this is you can get something that is completely and vastly different hour to hour and minute to minute to just use for your own purposes. And the annoying thing is the copyright is always the copyright and making sure that what you're using is ethical. But I think again, there are really, really good opportunities that we can use that aren't even, I think, discovered yet for artists to use AI in
And
very,
I think
very
that's right
interesting
because
and ethical ways.
you're absolutely right, Nick. And I think every aspect, from automating the laborious tasks, so they say like cleaning up audio, as we talked about with Here and Now, the Beatles song, to basically collaborating, coming up with the initial suggestions. There's nothing worse as a writer, if you like, than staring at a blank page. Well, if AI can
Oh,
be the first draft, that's got to speed up that process, I would have thought. Now, we always, the biggest fear that people have in the creative industry and indeed in every industry is, will AI take my job? Now, you as a creative director, do you think that AI could take on roles like yours in the future, or will a human intuition always be the secret source of storytelling?
well, to be honest, my what I'm usually doing as a creative director is I'm trying to find the person that can execute my idea in the most prolific way. So I have the vision, and my job is to see that through. If I can achieve, if I can find help to get that done, absolutely, I'm going to do it. I think it's whether it's that and that's what I keep on saying over and over to everyone is creative insight. Creative insight is going to be well, that sounds a bit crazy, but it's going to be a bastion for humanity. Is having it's what makes us unique is our imagination, our ability to look, in these simulations in our mind. And I think AI is going to, whether it takes jobs of certain people, I don't think that it will replace anyone. It will give people the ability to do the things they want to do using their taste instead of having to use their hands. And it makes my life better as a creative director because they have even better tools to do an even better job to execute the vision.
There you go, reassuring words. Thea, do you buy that?
I personally don't feel AI is ever going to take my job. What it does do is that for somebody, let's say, who's got no musical training and can't read and write music, it enables you on some level to get involved and to do it. However, I would say that if anything, AI makes it even more important that you do have these skills. So if let's say we'll go back to Suno AI, which is kind of like entry level, anyone can use it. and they split the stems. So that, let's say you take the drum pattern out, and then because I can physically write music, I can pop that drum pattern into Logic. I can change it and add it some bits. I could even just do that on paper. And but I wouldn't be able to do that as an untrained musical genius that I am. It's big myself up. But I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'd say if anything, AI is making it even more important for you to be highly educated in your subject, because an AI-enabled human being goes from average to amazing. An AI-enabled genius is just off the planet. But AI, there are things it can't do. Like I said, it can't create that personal relationship, personal brand. I have a hefty history of being dropped when I was born and having massive educational issues. I couldn't read and write when I was 10. I had hearing issues, balance issues. So I've gone through all of this journey to get to where I am today. If I tell you that whole story, suddenly when you listen to me on stage, knowing that some bits of my brain only function at 7%, you appreciate what I'm doing a lot more. Whereas if AI just spouts out what I'm doing, there's no backstory, right? There's no personal brand.
Well, and you're absolutely right about that. But that can
Mhm.
be fake. So playing devil's advocate, you can create an AI story. If I were programmed into a little machine, it would come onto this and say, "Well, Thea's got a great backstory. Come up with something similar." I can guarantee AI will do that. And so, what record companies are now, and this is the interesting question as well, Nick, is that people are being saying, "Well, you have to tell people when it's AI generated," which sort of it's rather like a trigger warning for me. If you're turning around and saying, "Hang about, this may contain," it's like Macbeth, it may contain scenes of murder and all that sort of stuff. Talk about a spoiler warning. Are you in favour of telling people something's AI generated, Nick?
I think right now it is pretty nice. I think it is important at the moment because things can be like the Drake situation. I mean, sometimes you don't know, and sometimes maybe you should know, because of the gray area of ethics. I think right now, yeah, I would like that.
You
I
like
mean,
trigger warning? Okay, Thea?
well, look, when you've got the Mona Lisa, you have to tell somebody if it's a fake Mona Lisa. If you when you have to tell the insurance company, guess what? I got someone to copy it, because otherwise you're trying to pretend that you've got the real one, right?
Yeah.
So we have to already do this in forms of art. I mean, if you look as far as deep fakes go, like the sex tapes, you've got Vicky Pattison, who I know, and she made one of herself and put it out there. And there's a very famous the girl with the blonde curly hair who presents, I think, on the BBC and does politics stuff, Anna Kunzberg or something like that. She did a research project into this and then found out somebody made a hot sex tape of her. And I'm
Uh,
just like, well, there were deep fakes out there anyway. Some of it you're going to realize it's deep fake. I couldn't imagine she didn't look that. She looked a bit like her sex tape, but not that much like it. And I do think it's great to flag things up so that it gives people, like, there's a thing on Instagram where if you've touched up your photographs or not, right? And so people will post and they'll be like, these are the natural pictures that aren't filtered, that aren't touched up in FaceApp or anything like that. And I think it's healthy that we know what is AI generated, what is not, and also so people can be inspired that oh gosh, I could go off and do better, or oh gosh, I don't feel so inadequate now because well, AI gave them some help.
Yeah, and I think that's and Vicky, and it is out there. I think it's a Channel 4 program that Vicky Patterson do have a look at my deep fake video and her deep fake sex tape, and she was going through all that shenanigans, and it's quite funny because her husband at the time, well, he put himself into one of these machines. I don't know if you saw that, and all of a
Yes.
sudden there he was, just to prove it doesn't undress, because this is the software. It doesn't undress men, because there he was with very large breasts, and so on and so forth.
He looked really distressed when he saw himself as a woman with his lady bits. He was like,
He had all his lady bits on there, but it did show that these undressing software, this is what it does. And the newsreader was somebody else who, but they did. I won't give out the name because people will be searching for the deep fake stuff, which is quite distressing. But Laura Kunzberg is a different presenter. But it was within that program they talk about that sort of side, and they were alarmed to see how many deep fakes there are out there. So it works on that sort of premise. Now there are. I mean, we talked about some that I won't mention that particular software, but there is a lot of software out there which can help the creative process. Recommend some of those for us, Nick. Talk us through what's available and what people can use themselves.
Soothe is an industry standard. It's an EQ tool that will find harshness and tone it down.
How do you spell that?
Ozone, Soothe, SOOTHE 2, Soothe 2. Um, Ozone by Now Native Instruments, Ozone, is a mastering tool, a mastering suite. So you can input a song and it'll listen to it and then it'll recommend some a mastering setting. Now with Ozone, whether or not you want it to master your song, it actually can be used as an analyzer. So in the larger industry studios, I will see often engineers put Ozone at the end of their mastering chain and have it go through the song, see what corrections it does, and then move from there and then do it manually. Um, let's see. This is for the more the stratosphere of generation. 11 Labs actually is a common website people use for voice generation, but there's also a text to audio prompt generator that I think is absolutely gorgeous, and you can get very, very creative results using it.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thea, anything you want to add? Any particular tools that you like?
It's AI, which actually I was thinking, Nick, maybe you know what you're talking about. So I had really chronic depression at one point. And when you're in that headspace, they tell you they want you to record your own voice so you can listen to yourself at night. And it's very hard to try and think of positive things to record. So you can rewrite basically your own, your hardware, and you rewrite your software with positive comments and stuff like that. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if you recorded your voice with Kit's AI? And then use the tool that you've been making, that kind of dreamscapes, and
Mm.
only allow it to make really positive, amazing things.
Oh,
So you can open your mind, right, to, because even now I sometimes get caught in limited, like fear set mindset. And wouldn't that be amazing if I was like literally going like, and you could be a trillionaire, and you can be, I mean, like Elon Musk, I think, has this naturally running, right? Let me go to Mars. I could be like, let me populate Venus. Um,
mm,
Dreamscape could be with my voice singing me into existence at nighttime or whatever, or I could pre-record it, listen to it, and think, yeah, this is what I want, and then I can be playing it in the background. And as you know, I did cymatics. So if you could edit it to be like harmonic frequencies that are going to help heal my body, like 432 hertz or 528 hertz,
mm.
whatever it is, that could be actually quite a phenomenal healing tool.
Well,
That
I think
that
it's
that
great. I mean, and the other thing as well, then, so what do you think? What would you like to see AI do, which it can't currently do very well?
Oh, academically reference. So Grok is out, and Gemini 2.0. And I'm forever writing an academic paper. You know how much I love academic papers. And I try to get it, and it claims in its deep research it can academically reference stuff properly. Now, what it did do was it pulled together the informations, but what it also did was hallucinate URLs. So when you went back to the main source of the URL, let's say it was like talking about something that Adobe has been developing, the facts were right. Adobe is developing these things, but that URL didn't actually exist. It had made the URL up, the last bit of it up. So what it did was it pulled information from all over the Adobe website and made up its own URL. Ugh, give me a proper academic reference.
Well, I think that's right. All these hallucinations, we've got great examples of those. We had one in the legal profession where basically a lawyer in America it was a negligence case. It was to do with somebody who was hit by one of these trolleys on an airline. They were out of time, statute of limitation, but they went to the court and used Chat GPT, I think it was, came up with all these cases, all these precedents, which they cited to the judge, and the judge turned around and said, "Well, Mister, whatever his name was, all very interesting, but they're completely made up, these cases." And that was the problem. And I think the lawyer got into trouble as a result of it. So Nick, what's going to be the big development? What would you like to see happening in the world of AI?
mm. What I like to see, I like to see agents being used more creatively because I think they're being used a lot in the business space. But the applications are absolutely bonkers. Um, I would like to see um, I think more experimentation and freedom. I think we're trying really hard to recreate the human experience using AI, but I think the gold mine is using it to develop a new experience and to go further and go beyond. We're using all this copyrighted material to make more copyrighted material. Why can't we go further, like what Thea was saying. I mean, Endel is a company that they do a software for sleep, and they make generative music that is, like you were saying, based in certain frequencies to match your natural sleeping pattern, things like that. Applications where AI's generative and data capabilities are being used in a way that just aren't possible without them.
No, fantastic. Well, what I love as well, Nick, is that coming to visit people in their homes via this glorious thing that Zoom, we can see all people's creative process behind you. I like your whiteboard behind you. What are you working on at the moment?
So that's currently a quote board. For anytime anyone comes in and has a session, I require them to put a quote down, whether it's their own words or a quote that they like. I allow them to look one up if they don't have one.
Find me the
Um,
favorite one. What's your favorite one on there at the moment?
Online discourse is the modern soliloquy.
Hey, there you go. Who came up with that? Do you know? We've got to credit where credit's due.
My friend Alex.
There you go.
My
Well,
friend
Alex, a good
Alex.
shout out for them. Talking about a
A
shout
shout
out,
out
it's
to
been brilliant
Alex.
having you on the show. Tell us how we can find out more about you. If people want to find out about the work you're involved with, and they can follow you on social media. Tell us about that.
Yep. Sorry, no service everywhere. Yeah. Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere.
Give us your handles.
Yeah. It's just at sorry, no service.
Oh, that's
Um,
easy.
yeah. Super easy.
That's what you.
I've got it everywhere.
Brilliant stuff. Thea, an absolute delight to have you. We're going to come back with more on AI with Thea next time around. But for now, Nick, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Take care. Bye bye.